Welcome back to the Exhausted docuseries. I'm Nick Palizzi.
And I'm Dr. Pedram Shojai.
I really hope you had a chance to watch episode 7. In it, we explored the inner vacuum of your body, the hardworking organ that is responsible for getting rid of all the toxins that find their way into your body every day.
They call it your liver for a reason. This thing bends over backwards to keep you alive all day, every day. And when it comes to overcoming fatigue, it plays a very big role. Okay, moving on.
So, the topic of this next episode might seem a little counterintuitive. This one's all about specific styles of movement you can do to end fatigue and create a fast activating reserve of energy.
A common thought that folks have when they're feeling tired and drained is that it's time to lay down, rest up to start feeling better. Now look, if you had one late night and are feeling the effects this morning, maybe that's a good idea.
But if you're chronically fatigued, no matter how early you're going to bed, more rest isn't going to magically fix you. Sometimes we need to do the exact opposite. Sometimes we need to move.
For millennia, we humans have understood the importance of moving our bodies through specific poses in order to circulate our chi, or our life force energy, to every region of our bodies. Whether it's the yogic practices of ancient India, the sacred dance rituals of Polynesian islands, or the Taoist movement meditations of China, we Homo sapiens were born to move. And when we stop exploring the physical capabilities of our bodies, things start to deteriorate, including our energy supply. Nick is standing by to lead us there next.
The main gist here is that you've got to use it or lose it. But why? What's actually happening in your body when you exercise, specifically as it relates to your energy levels? One word: muscle. I know. The word conjures images of The Rock, or that guy on late night TV with the home gym product from hell. We're not talking about bulking up, but we are talking about getting stronger and more lean. The science is in, and because your muscle is a great storage facility for glycogen, the shell version of glucose, the more muscle you have, the greater your energy reserves, as we're about to find out.
When we're talking about muscles in the context of energy, very generally speaking, the more muscle mass you have, the more capacity you have to generate energy. Muscles are functional, active tissue, so the more you have, the more energy you create. So it's very important, especially in the context of females. This is important for, both sexes. It's important for us to have a certain amount of lean body mass. But women, as we age, what we see, of course, when we go through menopause, is we see this destruction in bone density over time. And part of that has to do with the fact that our estrogens are within kind of like a 2-year period completely destroyed through menopause. But the more muscle mass you have, so it's really important for women, however old you are, to be thinking about putting on more muscle mass, because we know that muscle mass is directly correlated to bone density.
Exercise in general, if you're apparently healthy, those of us who are giving ourselves an oxygen bath basically every time we exercise. So we're getting more oxygenated blood to all of our extremities, making our heart more healthy, pump better, more stroke volume, so it has to beat fewer times per minute to do the same job. And we're also able to reverse aging if we're exercising correctly.
The more muscle you have, the more energy you're actually burning as you're just resting and sitting. And what I want patients to focus on, because so many of us tell people what to do. This research showed that HIIT training is the best, high intensity interval training. We used to tell everyone, all the cardiologists are saying aerobic exercise, go for a run, move 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day. I tell patients to lift weights and focus much more on resistance training and building muscle and not being scared to tonify the muscles and actually build muscle. And you don't build muscle by just running. You actually have to lift. It's kind of like you have to use it, right? And focusing a lot on the legs, because my focus of area I'm finding is dementia, Alzheimer's, all these brain issues are so on the rise. And the stronger your legs are, we found that the stronger your brain is. It has more of a surface area. So I'd say maybe focusing less on your biceps and, more on the legs if that's where you're starting. Obviously, you want to focus on the whole body.
As you're putting on more muscle mass through your weight training regimen, you're inhibiting something called osteoclastic activity, which are the cells that sort of break down the bone, and you are reducing the osteoclastic to osteoblastic, which is the cells that build up the bone, their activity. So muscle mass is going to positively increase your bone density, which is really important. And from an energetic and a metabolism standpoint, the more muscle you have, the more efficient you are at disposing of glucose. So every time we take in excess glucose, our muscles act as a repository for getting rid and taking the glucose out of the bloodstream and saving it in the muscle for a rainy day. So I always love to encourage my women, and I don't know why this still persists, but a lot of women are scared of lifting heavy weights because they think that they're going to turn into the Hulk. And, I have to very gently tell them that you don't have enough even if you wanted to, you don't have enough testosterones to make that happen. But what you do in the process of making more muscle mass is you make your body incredibly efficient at generating energy. You're protecting your spine and your skeletal system, and you're also improving your metabolic outcomes as well.
If someone's concerned about overdeveloping with weight training, what's the right muscle mass to aim for?
When we talk about muscle mass and is there an ideal muscle mass, it's really a little bit more relative to, is there an ideal fat mass? Kind of what makes up the difference, right? So we want to see a muscle mass balance with fat, that fat is lower than 30%. 30% is where obesity is. Optimal for whether you're male or for your female. For females, healthy ranges are generally between about 18 and 28%. And for males, less. It's usually about 12 to 18%. And that all depends on which textbook and which researcher you're going to consult.
A lot of people optimize their muscle mass for aesthetic purposes. So size and symmetry are two big focus areas, and those might not have anything to do with the functional power. So there are a lot of people who are not really built that are incredibly strong, and then there's really buff people that are not that strong. So also the functional capacity of that muscle there's huge differences, and a lot of people are focused on the aesthetic, again, size, shape, symmetry. Nothing wrong with those, but you're probably not then optimizing for functional capabilities. Because if you would be focused on functional capabilities, a lot of calisthenics, body weight stuff, walking, those would probably be more helpful to you than trying to do just pumped iron at the gym. That being said, if you have a lot of muscle mass, it tends to be easier to maintain a lower body fat percentage, and therefore a lot of people do get energy.
What you want to see as far as muscle mass is, first of all, that you have the ability to do things on a daily basis that you do that are not difficult, that are easy. So your daily activities of living are things that you can get done and still have energy left over. So nobody wants to work their entire workday. No matter what they do, it's a desk or it's factory or it's lifting bales of hay and then get home and simply need to recharge to do it all over again. The ideal is that we've got plenty of energy at the end of the day to sustain us, and so we can have fun. So the muscle mass to do that allows endurance exercise, so we can do things for a long, repeated period of time. And then also strength, so we can do maximal lifting or maximal loads of exercise.
It's very individual, and what does your lifestyle require? So I think if you look at Olympic athletes and you look at the sports, it's very different because they're optimizing for very different things. So no, there isn't one way to look at it. And the body just gets accustomed to whatever stimulus you give it. And then with proper rest and proper stimulus, you are going to become that body that your day-to-day life needs. And sure, if you do have, in many people, a little bit of more exercise will probably, people think I'm too busy for it, but it actually gives you more energy and more time. And by having Like heart rate variability is a really good metric on just your nervous system, and resting heart rate can also be another one. Again, noting that some people have naturally higher and lower, but tracking your own can give you a lot of indication of your base health.
Sometimes when someone gets inspired to start an exercise regimen, they hit it really hard. Not always the best thing to do, right?
Overdoing exercise can be really damaging for your metabolism and your energy levels, and oftentimes people gain weight from exercising too much, which can be really surprising because you think you're burning all these calories, but we know that, metabolism, it's not just about calories in, calories out. There's so much more we have to consider when it comes to the body. And one of the things we have to consider is inflammation. And when we're overdoing the exercise, we're actually causing inflammation in our body. Anytime you exercise, you cause inflammation in the body. And it's okay, but it's a problem when you're never giving your body that time to heal from that inflammation. So then if you're exercising hard every single day, you're just adding to that inflammation. It's just piling up, and your body has to focus on healing that. So it allocates all of its resources towards that. And then in turn, you feel exhausted because there's just nothing left for you to have energy because your body's just trying to heal that. So you can support your body in healing the inflammation by making sure you're adding in rest and recovery periods and not doing the types of exercise that cause inflammation. So the shorter, high intensity interval training is going to be better for your body and not cause inflammation in the way that, running for hours and hours or going on an exercise machine for hours will do.
We can break the muscle down a lot more than we realize if we're over-exercising. So we are a generation of middle-aged and older adults that learned really well from people who went through the Depression and told us to work harder. And we learned really well from them. And so we often do, when we want more results, we do more. Sometimes more of what's not working. That's probably not a good formula, right? So we can actually overload and break down faster as we age, and we are. We peak at muscle mass at the age of 25, and at that point, we start losing it easier than we gain it. So we've got to, if we haven't been resistance training, first of all, we've got to start. And we need to make sure, again, you're reaching that goal of fatiguing at the end of every set to overload the muscle. But we've also got to make sure that we're giving ourselves the rest between. So probably the number one mistake that most older adults make when especially they're trying to lose weight is putting more rest between workouts.
If you are like I was, when I was adrenally exhausted and had no cortisol and so tired, you want to do things like restorative yoga. You want to do gentle things. You don't want to be going to the gym and being that gym bunny, because you're now stressing the body out even more. You're making it make more cortisol and adrenaline, and so you are actually on a stimulant without taking a stimulant. So I think over-exercising is another problem that we also have. So it's all about balance, but really having a balanced movement plan for the week, where there's a day you're doing yoga, let's say, and there's a day where you are doing resistance, a day where you're stretching and really releasing all that lactic acid, because that is important. If you're tired and your muscles are fatigued, then you've got buildup from the workout from yesterday. So I think the balanced workout plan is key, and not focusing too much on what should I do? I heard this person said to do this and that person said to do that. I think it's more important to just move. Just move.
We have the capacity to do physically just as much work relative to our bodies as we did when we were younger, as long as we take more rest between the work. So if you used to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday exercise classes or strength training sessions, Monday and Thursday may be a better protocol for you to follow. So you're getting not 48, but 72 hours between those workouts. So if you're finding you're still sore at your next workout, you're exhausted between, you haven't found that energy, I would take another day of rest before you try something else.
Back in the day when I was in my 20s, and I was so focused on, my appearance. I thought that was how I was healthy, was how I looked on the outside. And I thought that to be healthy, if I would read a magazine, it would tell me, you got to work out. and you got to eat these diet things. And I was a workout queen. I mean, I was working out 6-7 days a week, double days. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I was so chronically overtrained and undernourished that I totally blew out my adrenals. I mean, and overtraining, when you aren't taking your actual rest days, when you're not giving your body adequate rest, your body actually doesn't get stronger. You just get burned out. And when you're younger, your hormones are a little bit more flexible. You have a little bit more leeway to do that. So you don't see the detrimental effects of that as fast. And you think that it's the aging process that actually is causing you in your 30s to suddenly my metabolism slowed down. No, it's this cumulative effect of all of the stuff that you've been doing for years. For me anyway, it was this constant overtraining syndrome that I had, and this constant really this desperation to feel like I was good enough and worthy enough. And that is itself like a kind of chronic stressor that I was living with. And it wasn't until I got really, really honest with myself about where that was coming from and addressed the root causes of my own stress and my childhood trauma, and really did the inner work to understand that really how I look and feel is a byproduct of how I treat myself. And when I love myself, that is a manifestation of everything that I value, and I value myself. And I don't need some external validation. And so every day, no matter how I look on the outside, I am beautiful, I am whole, I am complete, I am secure. And so of course I naturally want to eat foods that are good for me. I want to rest after I train because I know that that's actually how I'll get a better physical result, and also because it feels good to my body to rest after I've trained. Just like after a full day, I want to get a good night's sleep. That's the yin and the yang. There's the balance. And I think we just get so caught up in feeling like more is more, when actually it's just balance is the best thing for us.
We tend to think of marathon runners as being in the best shape and full of energy.
I used to run marathons thinking it was the best type of exercise because you're burning so many calories over such a long period of time. And what I found was I was exhausted all the time. And oftentimes we find with our clients who are really pounding the pavement, or they're working out a couple times a day, or they're going on the elliptical for an hour at a time, they actually get pretty tired later in the day. And I found that the best type of exercise that supports your energy levels and your metabolism and your waistline is actually the shorter, high intensity types. So the HIIT workouts, or sometimes it's called Tabata workouts, where you're doing these, short bursts of high intensity exercise followed by periods of rest, and you're alternating between the two. What I love about these workouts is they don't require great lengths of time. You really only need 10 or 15 minutes, and you're basically doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So you don't need to go to a gym. You can do it at home. You can just set a timer, and for 30 seconds, just go as hard as you can. Maybe you're doing jumping jacks. You could do lunges. You could do mountain climbers. If you have a staircase, you could walk up and down or run up and down. The goal is just to do these exercises as hard as you can and then rest for 30 seconds. And that's really the best type to get your heart pumping, and it's going to be the best for your metabolism. Helps people lose weight, and then you're going to feel more energetic later in the day when you're doing something like that compared to, just going slow for a longer period of time, like if you're running or on an exercise machine.
I used to run trail runs and marathons, and you're 9 to 12 times a week. But when you go past 5 exercises a week, you start to enter a world where, unless your goal is competing and that is what you're optimizing for, you're probably not optimizing for longevity at that point. So that also happens, and people get obsessed and they do more harm than good sometimes. But generally for many people, walking every day at least 10,000 steps, 15, 20,000 steps there's nothing wrong with that. Stretching every day, 15, 30 minutes, you can literally do that every day. And they may be 2 to 4 times a week doing something else, preferably something with agility or something you enjoy. That's usually also underrated. If you exercise and you do something you love, you'll probably be healthier than doing something you hate but think that will make you fit.
At the point we're at, so many people are in this low level of adrenal fatigue and don't know it, haven't acknowledged it, haven't realized that's a possibility for them, that we need to take a test and make sure you're not already dug into a hole and you don't need to fill that up. So the best rule of thumb, the best way to know that is the 10-minute rule. You start with a warm-up, and you start and progressively make that more intense for about 10 minutes. And at 10 minutes, if you're not feeling better, you're not feeling, I'm so glad I did this, then I would rest and I would call it quits and that's it. And if you're already feeling better, which will happen if your body is prepared and ready for exercise to benefit it, you'll feel better.
I think most people who exercise do it on their own schedule, before work, after work, on the weekends, but is there a time not to exercise?
When you're sick or you're about to catch a flu, should you exercise? And the answer is probably no. The other one is when you're jet lagged or traveling and you're exhausted, probably no as well. But it's not as black and white. For example, if you're tired, going outside in fresh air and doing breathing exercises, watching the sunset, watching the sunrise, being in cold water, jumping in the ocean or the lake, these are not really exercises, but you are in the elements and you're focusing on your breath. You're exposed to fresh air. To me, those are not really exercises, but they do help to give you more energy no matter how tired you are. So when we talk about exercise, if we talk strenuous exercise, the answer is probably not, but sometimes yes. And then when we talk about, is it worthwhile going to fresh air and breathing deeply or being connected to nature, the answer is almost always yes.
When you're already exhausted, tired, depleted, even if you're really stressed out in any way, it's a really good time to take a break from the high intensity exercise because you're already going to have that extra stressor on your body. And the last thing you want to do is add another stressor to your body. So the best types of exercise or activity when you're stressed out or tired already is, things like yoga, just going for a walk, just moving your body, but it doesn't have to be in like a really intense way. You want to do the more gentle types of movement.
Because it often comes to objective, like what am I trying to optimize for? And not comparing yourself to someone else. And I see that as a common problem as people compare themselves to professional athletes. You do not have their resources and they spend most of their time just laying down and resting between exercises. So you don't compare. If a pro athlete takes this much creatine or this much whatever thing, doesn't mean you should. Like if Michael Phelps eats 10,000 calories, doesn't mean you should. It's interesting and you can learn something from it, but it doesn't mean that don't compare yourself to that 0.1% outlier.
First of all, you're not broken. You're just a different age than you've been before. So the expectation, it's hard to know what you should expect, but you shouldn't expect that you can't lift as heavily or that you can't run as fast, because the moment you plant that seed, you're going to get what you expect. So it's looking for what are the right answers.
Well, there goes my dream of being a professional marathon runner. I'll have to stick with the short burst garage workout with my kids hanging around my ankles. It's crazy how far we've come in our understanding of the best exercise strategies for our unique bodily needs. It used to be a one-size-fits-all approach. Hit the gym, take a run, make sure to do some light stretching beforehand. But now we know that there's a time to work out and a time to rest, a time to weight train and a time to do more cardio. We've come a long way. So let's recap what we just learned. The more muscle you have, the more capacity you have to create energy. Weight training is a highly effective way to tonify the muscles. You can't build good muscle just by running. Lifting weights will not make you bulk up as a woman. You simply don't have enough testosterone for that to happen. If you're extremely fatigued, you want to start with gentle movement practices like restorative yoga, qigong, or stretching. Short burst training is superior to long distance endurance training for the replenishment of energy levels. If you're feeling fatigued and you decide to work out, it's helpful to use the 10-minute rule. Be realistic in your expectations of what your body can do, but never underestimate yourself.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. We'll get right back into it in a second, but I wanted to take a moment to tell you how you can own the entire series. Below this video, you'll find a link to the full Exhausted docuseries, as well as a bunch of powerful bonuses that you could bring into your home at a special discounted price. This also includes an Exhausted companion guidebook that's jam-packed with powerful takeaways and action items from each episode. It's loaded with deep dive wisdom that isn't included in our free premiere. On top of that, we're hosting 2 live Q&As where you can ask questions directly to some of the renowned experts you see in these episodes. If you're interested in bringing these powerful healing solutions into your life, it's well worth checking out. Plus, proceeds from your purchase will help us on our quest to unveil new breakthrough medicines and share this information with the world. Make sure you check it out. Now, back to this episode. We all know the importance of exercise in maintaining good health, and yet it's something that many people have a hard time sticking with on a consistent basis.
It's like everyone wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
As we're starting to see, there are some specific types of exercises to try and others to stay away from, especially when it comes to healing fatigue and exhaustion. There's an art to it.
This is where it gets a little more complex than just starting a gym membership and going 3 times a week.
Exactly. No more of this one-size-fits-all workout thing. That's a thing of the past.
As the world of health and wellness has evolved, we've begun to learn that every single one of us is wired differently and requires a specific regimen when it comes to all of our lifestyle habits. What works for Pedram might not necessarily work for me, and this couldn't be more true when it comes to exercise. Here's Pedram with the next section.
We are all so beautifully different. How best to create a regimen that's dialed in to us? As Nick mentioned, this notion of customized regimens for our one-of-a-kind physiologies is a cornerstone of the exciting new world of personalized medicine. This is fast overtaking the antiquated lifestyle approaches of our past. So what is the ideal movement strategy for you right now? Let's find out.
There is a role for exercise for everybody, but it depends on how much. So I can have an exhausted type A personality where they're like, don't worry, I exercise. I go to 10 spin classes a week. And that person, I need them to dial that back. I need them to engage in other forms of activity. And the analogy that I use with my patients, well, it's not so much an analogy, but the philosophy I share with my patients with respect to exercise comes back to the wisdom of Chinese medicine and looking at the yin and yang. And yang energy is hot and it is rising. And when people are in that wired and tired phase, when they're just sort of buzzing, but they know that they are exhausted, that system is hot. It doesn't need more heat. Those are the people that actually need to move by doing Pilates or yoga, slower, cooler activities. And in contrast, I have people who are tired and everything they do is slow. And everything they do is cold. And those are the people that I say, listen, I want you to doing some high intensity things a few times a week.
You have to have a variety. So there has to be stretching involved. And there has to be cardiovascular, absolutely. I think aerobic has gotten a bad reputation now with all the HIIT and the resistance training. There has to be some sort of high intensity interval training where you push yourself 100%, you take a break. 100% take a break. Not just running fast on a treadmill for a minute and then stopping, but actually pushing yourself to your limit and stopping. That will help energy in that muscle. And then also doing just weights and biking, pushing, using machines, using your own body weight, using bands, using your chair. You know, there's so many resources out there, but I would really advise that you don't just do the same thing and do 5 spinning classes, especially for my women who are exhausted. They'll find that gives them energy and that releases tension or their anger or their irritability, but it's actually depleting them long term.
One is going to be, cardiovascular health. We want to be thinking about cardio in a steady state fashion. But I also like weight training. I like to play with weight training as well. So really heavy weight training. So like very specifically max rep of 5 repetitions. So as much weight as you can lift 5 times. I would call that powerlifting. And then we also have sort of endurance weight training where the weight is lower, but your repetitions are going to be higher. So you may, repeat the exercise 10 or 12 times. Both of those things are going to be first utilizing different fibers in the muscle, but then you're also going to be increasing your capacity overall for being able to get rid of metabolic substrates that build up in the muscle over time and to help with your metabolic capacity.
It's not just the hot and cold that we will look at for people. It's how is their adrenal system doing? What is going on with respect to nutrients? Truly, is there an organic cause of their exhaustion that we need to address first? But for everybody, there is an opportunity to adjust and utilize and leverage movement as part of the prescription. And then once we get people well, once we really start to restore their energy, most of the time exercise can be self-sustaining in terms of energy. But in the beginning, we want to be really conscientious in terms of how we leverage it.
Can you explain how exercise, particularly different types of exercise, impacts the energy systems of our body?
We've got 3 energy systems. So we've got a very quick ATP system, and that's essentially the storage of energy right there. So that would mean if you were going to sprint for a very short period of time, maybe to grab a child who was about to fall, if you were going to grab a glass that was about to fall off the counter, that quick, rapid exercise is using your ATP, your fast energy system. You've got another system that actually uses a little bit longer, but not as long as an aerobic system. That's 2 minutes or less. So from that small little sprint from about 10 seconds to 2 minutes, you're using this system, the lactic acid system, and then there's the aerobic system. Your muscles are storing glycogen in them, ready for exercise at any moment. And if you're doing the short, rapid burst of exercise, you're going to exhaust that quickly, but it will also restore very quickly. The longer you exercise, the more recovery you need in order to restore those glycogens that will allow you to do longer types of exercise.
For the general population, we want to be thinking about utilizing our capacity in an aerobic environment, so steady state cardiovascular activity, lighter weights. And then we also want to be thinking about harnessing our anaerobic activity. So anaerobic denotes, the lack of oxygen in the production of energy. And the human body is amazing that we can create ATP, we can create energy in an oxygen-rich environment and an oxygen-depleted environment. So an anaerobic activity might be sprinting, it might be Tabata style, where you're going like all out, balls to the wall, as fast as you can for a certain amount of time, 30 seconds, then there's a recovery, 30 seconds, then there's a recovery. And even in heavy lifting or weight training can be also anaerobic as well, because the cell's requirement for oxygen supersedes the supply that's available.
We've been speaking pretty broadly about exercise, but now I want to get specific and talk about resistance training. What are the benefits and how does it benefit exhaustion?
Resistance training or strength training, as it is, or weight training, depending on how you want to use the term, really is about overloading the muscle. So we're talking about doing more work than the muscle is used to doing, and the requirement, or the way you got there, is you reach temporary fatigue. So big difference between that and quote unquote exhaustion, or being tired at the end of a workout, is if you're actually reaching muscular fatigue. So if you were lifting a weight for your bicep, using your upper arm to bring a weight up and down, if you were truly going to reach fatigue at the end of a set of exercises, of repetitions, you would find yourself the last one that you could do well doing that full range of motion. That's fatigue temporarily. Generally for exercise, that's somewhere between 10, 15, 20, 25 is probably as many as you want to do if you're doing traditional weight training. There's a lot of new research emerging showing if we tie that up with a band and we do some strength band work, we can use as little as 20 to 30% of our maximum. So that might be almost nothing in your hand and still reap the rewards of the energy and the strength to that muscle group.
Resistance training is key actually for helping you to build and maintain lean mass, which you need to help protect your joints, to help you go through time in a fit, strong, healthy body that you love. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do resistance training. You know, I could do a workout with just this chair and my own body weight using gravity. Yoga, great way to do resistance training. I mean, you're working, if you think about a down dog, for example, I mean, you are pushing and you are stretching, and then you come through a chaturanga flow and you're coming down with this resistance against gravity into this low push up. I mean, these are things that really will work your body. I mean, just the same as if I put my feet on this chair and did a hip bridge lift using gravity to like slow down my body. Of course, weight training is also great. It's the things that you do with mindful movement where you are using your body in a way that it challenges it. It's all about that challenge to strengthen your muscles.
So strength training, resistance training needs that overload. You have to reach that point where you actually got to fatigue, not just did a number of them and then put the weight down. Check, did that, right? So you've got to reach that point. And when we're talking about intensity in strength training, we're really talking about reaching fatigue. So the more intense an exercise is, probably the fewer repetitions that you're doing, but it could also be more repetitions, lighter weight, as long as you reach that point of fatigue. It's the same sensation will occur in the muscle. So it's all about reaching the point of fatigue, and that's likened to if we were doing aerobic activity or cardiovascular activity. Being breathless is that same sense of this is high intensity. When you're done with an interval and your hands on your knees, I need a break. Now you've increased the intensity such that you've overloaded your cardiovascular system, and it will respond by not just getting as strong as it was, but by getting stronger.
There's a lot of ways to approach it. I personally like to combine resistance training in its many forms with explosive cardio. You'll see people just going crazy doing so much cardio, which is, cardio is great. You want good cardiovascular health, but overdoing cardio can be really detrimental and not really lead to the results that you're looking for. So many of my people are looking to have, a lean, fit physique that's strong, that carries them through their lives so that they can show up for their families and their spouses and themselves, most importantly. And I just feel like this combination of strength training, resistance training with explosive cardio has just really helped me and has really helped the people that I teach just get the most bang for their buck in the shortest amount of time, especially when they're consistent with it. I talk a lot about that. We hear a lot about all or nothing. I'm failing because I'm not doing all my workouts, or I'm not doing the one workout that she's doing. It's not that. It's about being consistent with the things that you enjoy doing. And the way I look at it is all or something. Do something that you can do, that you enjoy. And that is good. That is going to get you where you need to go.
There's so many varieties of exercise and exercise programs today. What's working for you, and what does it do for your energy?
I love the high intensity interval training, whether you're someone new to working out, you have over 100 pounds to lose, or whether you're an avid person that works out regularly. I love that kind of intensity because you can take it at whatever your fitness level is, and it's going to get the heart started, but you get that variation. So it's really training the heart muscles. So I love to do Orange Theory Fitness. I also do a series of ab exercises. I love the ab wheel. I love doing mountain climbers, a lot of body resistance. So anything that involves just your own body's weight resistance. Now, after you do a ton of push-ups, arm circles are one of the best ways to rip the arms all the way in your back muscles. You'd be surprised what can happen in just a couple weeks. So making sure that because we're so busy, working smarter, not harder on all your exercises is definitely the way to go, because not everybody has a couple hours to spend in the gym. So it's about how you maximize the energy that you need to do the exercises that will also give you energy back into your life.
If you're a beginner, you're going to start ideally with your status and decide, can I actually start with cardiovascular and strength training and some kind of mobility? So in terms of the most energy, where's that going to come from? It'll come from some kind of aerobic activity, but the importance of strength training is emerging. So we're replacing what we used to think was most important was let's get you up, let's get you started walking, let's start you with running. And we now know the importance of strength training is probably at least 50-50 when you're younger. And as you age, strength training becomes more and more important. And strength training will allow a lot of oxygen to the muscles to improve energy. So if you've got strength and muscle endurance, you will have more muscle and you will age better no matter what age you are.
It's really important to work with your natural health care provider to know where your basis is, where you're at, and talk about your exercise regimen, especially if you're just getting back into working out. That way you know that you're within the parameters that you need. Also, it's important, I love using a heart rate monitor. I like to see where I'm at, and I like to get my stats because it's really also important to know what your heart's doing, what your body's doing, and then measuring your recovery time too. If you're up running on the treadmill, how long does it take for your heart rate to go back down into a normal range? And is that improving over time? You know, for me, as soon as I get off of the treadmill, within 30 seconds, my heart rate is right back down there. In fact, sometimes it's infuriating because I'm like, oh my goodness, it could have stayed up there longer. But we really do want to make sure, and we want to use proper benchmarks to make sure that we are getting the kind of exercise that we need for our body. And, you know, I had a good friend who I've helped coach. She's lost over 50 pounds and 51.5 inches. And it was definitely the heart rate monitor that took her to the next level, because people think, oh, I'm at the gym, I'm on the treadmill, I'm watching what the little thing says on the monitor. But it's not actually monitoring you per se. It's monitoring, oh, you weigh this much, you're this height. And so you can't necessarily go with what the machines say. You really have to have something that actually is measuring your physical body and what you're actually doing.
My grandparents, they just moved, they worked, they didn't go to the gym. My grandma didn't do weights, so she doesn't have osteoporosis. But she gardened, she moved a lot. My grandfather did a lot of yoga throughout his whole life and was doing headstands till 97 years old. So I think overthinking it is actually an obstacle, and just getting out there and doing what you like to do is more important.
We just got some great advice here. This is where we as individuals can start with certain exercise regimens and strategies that are geared towards revitalizing our energy reserves. Like we said before, it's all about just getting started somewhere. Think about all the billions of cells and trillions of microbes within you. They're all active, or at least they should be. Motion is our friend, and when we begin to stagnate, we begin to break down. Simply put, here are some key things to remember. You want a healthy combination of different styles of exercise: aerobic, cardio, resistance training, and stretching. ATP and our mitochondrial system is activated by fast twitch anaerobic movements. Think 30-second short burst exercises. Our lactic system, on the other hand, is tonified and strengthened by more aerobic exercises. Resistance training, or the lifting of more weight than your body is used to, brings the body to a state of temporary fatigue. Through repetition, resistance training conditions us to adapt to this new aspect of our lives, which results in more energy reserves. As you get older, strength training becomes even more essential to keeping your body youthful and having high energy.
Aggressive exercise is not the only physical treatment for exhaustion and fatigue.
That is certainly true and been known since ancient times.
You know, Pedram, there's this ancient movement meditation that I've been meaning to tell you about.
Oh boy, I'm listening. Wait, are you talking about dancing tango? I know you're into that kind of stuff, but it's not relevant here.
No. It's this alchemical series of full body flows that naturally move the energy, or chi, throughout your entire body.
This sounds familiar. Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
It all comes down to 4 words: eyes, mind, body, and breath. When you're able to align your eyes and your mind with your body and the air that's coming into your lungs, otherwise known as breath, you can completely transform your perception of this reality and tap into limitless energy.
The ancients in the Far East somehow figured out how to hack into these boundless life force reserves, and they created an entire system of healing around it. Here's Nick to unpack this time-tested modality.
The practice that Pedram's referring to is called Qigong. It's an art that he's had the honor of practicing for decades, and it's created enormous benefits not only in his life, but the lives of thousands of his students. It's all about connecting with your body's energy flow and optimizing your metabolism. And one of its go-to applications, you got it, the resolution of fatigue in your body. Let's take a look at how it works.
So a good doctor will try to guide their patient in lifestyle and relationships and stress control. Now, for a lot of Chinese, what that meant literally was encouraging people to do Qigong and to encourage people to do something like Tai Chi, which is a Qigong. And that's an energy motion stuff. If you want to be impressed, go on YouTube and put in Qigong masters over the age of 90. and you'll see these guys that are just so limber. Why are they so limber? I can't do that, you know. And these guys are dancing all over the place and sweeping the floor with their legs and they're doing all this stuff. And they're 90 years old or more. And they're 90 because they've been doing that, you know. So in Chinese TCM culture, encouraging Qigong, Tai Chi, some other Chinese martial arts is a way to keep young.
In the Chinese culture, Qi is essential. And you've probably heard about Taoism and some other philosophies. So Qigong is not based on Taoism, but it actually is. There's Buddhist Qigong, there's Taoist Qigong, there's Confucian Qigong, there's clapping hands Qigong, there's medical Qigong, there's more of a spiritual form, Jining, which is what I studied. It's wisdom and abilities, wisdom abilities. So it's about using energy to think better, to be more intuitive, to be more harmonious in your life. So in Western society, we've come to be trained and conditioned and programmed to believe that energy comes from doing something outside of us, okay? And to a certain degree, that's okay. But I believe that chronic exhaustion comes from the fact that those things just, they have a point at which they don't work anymore, okay? And that's with everything. That's finite. That's in the natural, that's in the artificial world. There's artificial energy, you know, like the lights here, fluorescent lights, that's artificial light. You go outside, you've got natural light. So we get energy from the sun. We get energy from the earth. And most indigenous peoples, they knew this. And same thing with Chinese medicine, with Ayurvedic medicine, they knew this. And so the practice of Qigong is, for me, it's really connected with nature.
What's the connection between Qigong and energy? How can it help someone with chronic exhaustion?
Energy in traditional Chinese medicine is, we call it Qi, or in Japanese it's Ki, like in Aikido, that's the key of energy. And Qi is in Qigong, is the energy Qi of Chinese Qi. And energy runs through the body and keeps the body alive. There are 12 acupuncture channels on each side of the body, and energy runs through these sequentially. And if the energy is running through, it provides everything with the functional power to do its job, even down to a cellular level. So we would say energy is responsible for the mitochondria rather than mitochondria being responsible for the energy. So energy moves, and we think that a body's healthy if that energy is of a good quality and it's distributing through the 12 channels equally. And from the channels, it gets to the organs and all the other functions it can do. So health is energy good, energy moving. Any health problem in Chinese medicine, we will reduce to either the energy quality is not good, which also affects the blood. So we always say energy in blood, Qi in blood, has a problem, usually a weakness, a deficiency, or the energy flow is blocked. So a lot of pain is a blockage of the energy. So in Chinese medicine, we want to make sure that the Qi in blood is a good quality and that there's no blockages. Something like acupuncture is very good at opening up those blockages, and that's why it's so good for pain cases, acupuncture. Building up energy, we usually need to go to herbs, Chinese herbs.
Qigong has been around for thousands of years, and it's a lot of it integrates with Chinese medicine and also Eden energy medicine. In traditional Chinese medicine, they look at the whole system as we have something called meridians, and you may or may not have heard about that. Most people have heard about acupuncture. There's 365 acupuncture points on the body, and when they become blocked, and the meridians, there's 14 of them, they correspond with all the organs, all right? And the central goes up the front of the body, and governing goes around back of the body, okay? And so these are circuits that move through the body, and when everything's flowing really well, then we feel good. We have energy, we have vitality, our brains work better, everything works better. But the minute there becomes a jam, okay, then things don't work so well. My analogy I love, because I live in Los Angeles, is that 405 freeway and the 101. Sunday mornings, it's a breeze. You get on the freeway at 7 a.m., you're in heaven. You just fly through LA. But at 8 o'clock a.m. on a weekday, forget it. Okay, so you're flying, going fast, and then all of a sudden more cars come on. That I refer to as more like more stagnant energy, like too much energy. The blood will get thick. It's just the same as blood. If blood is thinned out, like the consistency of wine, it flows. If it's like ketchup, it clogs. Same thing with qi. You can't see it like you can the blood. And it doesn't have a pump like the heart does, but it flows nicely until there's a block in one of the acupuncture points or in the meridians. And that's part of the reason why we have pain and also low energy. People are just blocked up.
Our planet is full of energy. If you obliterate it, which has happened 5 times already, life totally comes back. This planet is just alive, and things just go in and come out all the time. It's just alive. The whole universe is alive. But in our planet, that energy is coming from 2 sources. One is the sun, and one is the earth. So from the sun is the yang energy coming down. And from the earth is the moist yin energy coming up. And when those 2 energies fuse, everything becomes alive, including the human body. That's why only our planet in our solar system has life. It's the perfect balance of yang and yin, of sun energy and earth energy. And the earth energy runs through the acupuncture channels that go up, and the yang energy from the sun runs down the acupuncture channels that go down. And when these merge, this is what gives us vitality.
Do the patients you see know when they're blocked? What do they complain about? What do they feel? How do they express it?
A lot of times people will come in, they'll either say that they have low energy or that their energy's caught somewhere in their body. So taking the example that it's caught somewhere in your body, the client might even do this, it's caught right here. So what I would have them do is sit up nice and tall and then do that movement again. And I would ask them to include their breath with it this time, and I would do it with them. So maybe we're going to inhale and exhale into the movement, and then we're going to inhale and do something else with it. So we're not going to stay here. We're going to move through it. So what I would have you do is do just a couple of times in a really slow and meaningful way. So Tai Chi helps us build our energy because it helps us move our energy in a slow and meaningful way. It's been proven to increase energy and relieve symptoms of chronic fatigue.
What I learned was first, and I do this when I used to be a dance teacher. I would say, okay, learn the steps first. Start with the feet, and then you add the arms, and then you add the breathing maybe. Oh, you should always breathe, but the mind can only do so many things at once. And then you add the character, like what's your emotion? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? With Qigong or Tai Chi, you learn the movements first, and then you incorporate the breathing with it. So one thing at a time. And then most importantly, you then start thinking, where's my mind? And in this style of Qigong, they bring in Qi from the universe. Tai Gong means space, from the earth. Ding Tian Li Di. Ding Tian means head reaching up to the sky. Li Di is feet going down into the earth. So they're visualizing this. And then the movements, and I'll do it small so you can see it, but my arms are out, right? And I'm bringing in energy and then going out and then drawing it in. And then going out and imagining my hands are magnets and they're just drawing in the chi from nature, from the universe, from the horizon, from the plants, from the trees, from the flowers. And you know, we do movements simple as that, but it is a choreographed kind of practice and method. So it's really, in 28 minutes, you've circulated energy through your whole body. And it's calming. I've never injured myself like I did when I was a dancer, which is what got me into Qigong. Was such a serious dance injury that I closed my school. I was 48 years old and I had to find another career. And that's why I went into Qigong.
So people can either do traditional Tai Chi, there's plenty on YouTube, or they can make up their own. So there's nothing magical necessarily in those movements. Maybe some people might think that there is. But if you know your body's reaction to stress is this, then start with this and move out of it.
We've talked about energy channels in Eastern medicine and movements that can keep them clear and flowing. Now, acupuncture is not an exercise, but it's a method to clear these channels. Can we talk about how it works?
Acupuncture basically has to go back to the 12 channels. The energy moves from one channel to another and goes through the body. So the 12 channels are the same channels on each side of the body. So it goes lung channel, large intestine channel, stomach channel, spleen channel. These channels, these names are Western constructs. The Chinese and Japanese don't call them lung channel, large intestine channel. The Westerners put those names on. So it's very misleading. Oh, what's wrong with my kidneys? Or what's wrong with my large intestine? Or how's my large intestine channel? Because I'm constipated. Your large intestine channel may be fine. It may have nothing to do with the large intestine channel. The Chinese didn't use those names at all. They called it the arm Xia Yang and the arm Xia Yin and the arm Jia Yin. I mean, they had different names for the channels that had nothing to do with the organs they went to at all. Now, it turns out that there is some connection to the organs, but it's not the only thing they do. So the channels move through the body, and they move energy through the body. That energy you get from your food primarily, secondarily air and oxygen, and third, your stored constitutional energy, called your kidney energy. So kidney, spleen, and lung will make your energy, what you call the zhongqi, the true energy. And that runs through the channels in sequence. And it goes along the path, and it goes to its focused organs. So the yin channels are on the inside of the arm or the inside of the legs, and they predominantly are interested in the organs. The yang channels, which are the outside of the arm, the outside of the legs, are more concerned with the musculoskeletal body. So all the yang channels, stomach, large intestine, bladder, they have nothing to do with those organs, but they go along the route that they go through. So the energy moves, and the basis of acupuncture is we want that energy to be a good quality, robust, and to move. We don't want it stuck. We want each channel to be similar to each other. Now, the Japanese have focused on this as their acupuncture. This is their acupuncture. This is meridian acupuncture. And I use a computer device to look at the status of the acupuncture channels. And it'll tell me which ones have too much energy, which ones have too little energy. Also, what is your total level of energy? And so I do computer meridian diagnosis, and that's how I pick the points, the needles that I'm going to use to fix that. It's a great system, very easy. Don't have to think, just do. But the doing is good. It's really good. Now, let's say you don't have a computer and you're Japanese stylist, what will you do? You'll do it from the pulses. I'm going to balance these channels from the pulses and from how I sense the energies moving through the body, okay? All right, that's good. That's the Japanese approach. Move the chi in the blood, and you've got to make the chi a good quality. So the Japanese will use direct moxa, which is a herb that they burn on the skin to create energy. Okay, and they do that more than the Chinese. Chinese don't like to, they do sticks, which is a different application.
When I first started studying it, I was at a medical Qigong school in northern China. And they really focused on the acupuncture points and on the meridians and on the exercise. So we learned all these exercises. I learned Tai Chi too. And I went to the second school and I performed. They said, show us what you learned at that school up in northern China. And I did. And they said, looks like exercise. I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, we do more inner size. In other words, they focus more on the mind in Jining Qigong, your wisdom abilities. And they believe that if you can focus your thoughts, like you say, where the attention goes, blood flows or qi flows. And that's the way it is with life. There's certain things that our science, medical science, has said, that this is the case. But in Qigong, they don't believe in that. So they believe that anything is possible, including broken bones, taking tumors away, cancer disappearing, arthritis gone, blood pressure regulated. Now, those are simpler things, but I've seen so many people cure themselves of cancer doing Qigong. And at the center, there was a group of people there. They're there for 90 days. They do Qigong. They're all older, seems like, because they have diabetes or kind of a lifestyle illness. And so 90 days, they do acupuncture, they do Chinese herbs, and then they do Qigong. And Harvard has studied their results of their tests. Harvard has gone there and, done these clinical double-blind trials to see, what's working for these people. And they can't explain it.
It turns out that our ancestors knew a thing or two about how to keep these bodies of ours healthy and thriving. They lived in harmony with nature and understood how to flow through life. Some of this just makes common sense though, doesn't it? Moving your body and all of its senses in unison for a sustained period of time has to yield some desirable results. Think of it as a daily recalibration of sorts, a way to adjust your internal rhythms so that your engine can run at its peak. Okay, let's recap some of the wisdom that was just shared. In China, there's a strong emphasis placed on the ability to cope with and adapt to stress. It's seen as a hidden key to longevity. One of the primary approaches to achieving this inner flexibility is through a practice called Qigong. In traditional Chinese medicine, the term for energy is qi, and this is thought to run through 12 channels of the body known as meridians. Most diseases are thought to be caused by a problem with the flow of qi or the flow of blood. Qigong is based on the notion that there are two sources of energy on our planet, the sun, or yang energy, and the earth, or yin energy. When these two sources of energy are flowing through us in balance, we feel great. A central belief to this system of medicine is where the attention goes, the blood or qi flows. Before we go, make sure to click the button below this video to find out how you can bring all 9 episodes of the Exhausted docuseries, plus a bunch of powerful bonus resources into your home for life. Every one of us deserves to know the full spectrum of healing options that are out there for us. The information in this series is something you will want to come back to again and again whenever you experience a feeling of energy depletion or fatigue, be it with your own health or that of your family and friends. You can own the all-access package at a special discounted price during this event only. Now is the time. Like I said, Pedram, there are some amazing ancient medicines coming out of China that are truly remarkable. I think they could change your health, my health. I think we should be giving them a shot.
Man, you've blown my mind. I give in. I will give it a try.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, want to tell our lovely viewers what we have in store for them next time?
Would love to. So, our next episode is where the rubber hits the road. Now that we've covered a lot of the theory and underlying factors that contribute to fatigue, episode 9 is where we show you some of the concrete action steps to fix yourself.
We'll be exploring powerful ways to A, test and pinpoint specific imbalances that are causing your challenges, and B, treat those systems of your body in order to regain the robust energy of your youth.
Episode 9 is the payload episode. We're talking about serious remedies, personal practices that are all geared towards your specific physiology.
These have all been proven in various studies to have a meaningful and positive impact on exhaustion of all shapes and sizes.
This is not one to miss, so we will see you next time.
Until then,